What if I told you that you could get way better grades and actually understand things more deeply, all while studying for a fraction of the time? Well, that's exactly what we're going to unpack today. How to get those A+ results by studying smarter, not longer. Oh, has this ever happened to you? You grind for hours, you're highlighting, you're rereading, you're exhausted, only to find out the person next to you barely studied and totally aced it. It is one of the most frustrating feelings ever. But here's the secret, okay? It has nothing to do with being smarter. It's all about having a better strategy. All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to expose what I call the 6-hour study trap. Then we'll dig into the single biggest mistake almost everyone makes when they study. After that, we get to the good stuff. 3 super powerful, science-backed methods that'll change everything for you. And at the end, we'll wrap it all up into your brand new study playbook. Okay, let's just get right into it. The truth is, if you go to places like Harvard or MIT, the top students are not the ones chained to their desks all day and all night. Not even close. They've figured out that the number of hours you clock has almost nothing to do with your results. They've totally escaped that trap of thinking more time means better grades. And that's the big question, right? If just grinding for 6 or 8 hours isn't the answer, then what is? Well, the secret isn't some clever little study hack. It's not a gimmick. It's actually a fundamental shift in how you think about learning itself. Which brings us to the biggest villain in this whole story. The most common, and honestly, the most useless study technique on the planet. Just passively rereading your notes over and over again. You see, the problem isn't your work ethic. It's that the method you're using is literally fighting against how your brain is built to learn. Just look at the difference here. On one side, you've got that passive review. Rereading and highlighting feel productive, but they create what's called an illusion of competence. The words look familiar, so you trick yourself into thinking you know the material. But here's the key. Familiarity is not mastery. Now, look at the other side, active learning. This is where you make your brain work. You force it to pull information out. It feels harder, and that struggle is exactly what builds real, solid memory. And listen, this isn't just my opinion. We're not talking about some motivational fluff. These strategies are backed by hard science from amazing places like Washington University, the MIT Learning Lab, and Cambridge. This is the real deal. This is the actual science of how we learn best. So the most important thing is to switch from being a passive learner to an active one. And our number one most powerful tool to do that is a technique called active recall. So, what on earth is active recall? It's actually really simple. It's the act of closing the book and asking your brain, okay, what do I actually remember? So instead of just putting information in your head, you're constantly practicing pulling it out. It's like you're quizzing yourself all the time. So here's exactly how you do it. You study a topic for a bit. Then, and this is the important part, you close your book, put your notes away, on a blank piece of paper, write down everything you can remember. Now this part is going to feel hard, and that's the point. It shows you exactly what you don't know. Then you just open the book back up, check what you missed, and focus on those weak spots. It is so targeted and so much more efficient. Okay, so active recall changes how you study. Our second method, the spacing technique, is all about changing when you study. It's all about timing, and it works perfectly with what we just learned. The idea is so simple. Your brain remembers things way better when you spread your learning out over time. So instead of one monster 6-hour cram session the night before an exam, you'd be much better off doing 3 2-hour sessions over 3 days. Why? Because you're interrupting what scientists call the forgetting curve. Every time you come back to the material, you strengthen that memory right as it's starting to fade. It makes it so much more durable than cramming ever could. And the results from doing this are, well, they're kind of insane. Research shows that using this spacing technique can boost how much you remember long-term by up to 200%. Seriously, let that sink in. Just by changing the timing of your studying, you can literally double what you retain. It's a total game changer. All right, so we've got how to study with active recall and when to study with the spacing technique. Our third and final method, the Feynman method, is all about making sure you get to a really deep level of understanding. It's actually named after a Nobel Prize-winning physicist, and it's used by top students everywhere. You know, the core idea is so simple but so powerful. It's this. You don't really understand something until you can explain it in simple terms. This whole method is basically a test to see if you're just memorizing words or if you actually get the concept. And doing it is incredibly easy. First, you just pick a concept. Then, you pretend you have to teach it to a 10-year-old. Use simple words, no jargon. Now, the moment you stumble, the moment you say or have to use a complicated word, bingo, that's step 3. You've just found a hole in your understanding. So you go back to your notes, figure it out, and then try to simplify your explanation again. It's this powerful little loop that builds a rock-solid foundation. So you've got active recall, the spacing technique, and the Feynman method. Look, these aren't just 3 random tips. This is a complete system that works together. This is your new study playbook. You see, it's a completely different mindset. It's about shifting from valuing how many hours you suffer through to valuing how effective your technique is. So the real question is, are you ready to make that shift? So here it is, the whole playbook on one slide. Think of it like this. Active recall is your main tool for building strong memories. It's all about pulling information out. The spacing technique is how you make sure those memories stick around for the long haul. And finally, the Feynman method is your quality control. It's how you test yourself to make sure you truly understand it all. Each tool has its own job, and when you use them together, you're pretty much unstoppable. You know, we started this whole thing with that story about the students studying for 6 hours versus the one studying for 2. The difference was never about who was trying harder. It was always about who had the better strategy. And now you have the exact strategies. So the final question isn't about your next exam. It's this. With all that time you're about to get back, what are you going to do with it?